Subway's financials are a fucking mess. The $5 footlong has come and gone, and I bet most of you watching haven't been to one in years. But depending on who you ask, Subway is either totally fucked or poised for a huge comeback. For example, they've closed about 7,500 stores in America over the last 10 years, but are somehow still adding 10,000 more stores abroad. Their franchise has pulled in record sales in 2023, but if you adjust for inflation, then they're actually $200,000 behind. They're one of the best known brands in the world, but nobody really likes their food. So what the hell is really happening here? Well, to figure it out, I poured through dozens of news articles and market reports to find out if Subway is actually doomed. And the answer is more tricky than you might expect. This journey took me far and wide across the expanse of corporate bullshit, and even made me touch grass to get my very own Subway sub. So stick around if you like seeing people in pain. Hi, my name is Nathan Denzine, and I was a pretty good college journalist once upon a time, so you can trust me. Well, in order to figure out how fucked Subway really is, we gotta figure out how they became a behemoth in the first place. And it all started in 1965, when a 17-year-old sat down with a nuclear physicist to figure out how he should try to pay for college. Dr. Peter Buck, who was the family friend, sat down with a young Fred DeLuca, and the two of them came up with an idea for a business. That business was a sub shop, but in this sub shop, customers could choose their own ingredients on their sandwiches. They felt the idea was revolutionary, and with a $1,000 investment from Buck, DeLuca got straight to work. The restaurant was initially named Pete's Drive-In. Super submarine sandwiches. Really rolls off the tongue. But it found pretty instant success, selling over 300 subs on their first day of business. By 1968, that name was changed to Subway, and by 1974, Buck and DeLuca owned and operated about 16 Subways across Connecticut. When you're hungry, make tracks for Subway. And right about here is when the pair started to really dream big. The pair officially started to franchise in 1976 with another location in Connecticut, but the idea soon spread coast to coast. And for those of you who aren't familiar with how franchises work, here's a really quick breakdown. An individual agrees to pay a brand a certain amount of money up front, and in return, that person gets to open up their very own store underneath that brand name. On top of that initial charge, most franchises will send a small amount of their profit back to the corporate offices each month. The corporate offices handle things like menu choices, store layout, branding, and advertisement, while the individual franchise owner handles their own finances. In theory, it's a win-win. An individual can open up their very own store with a certain amount of confidence that it's going to do well because of the brand recognition, while the corporate offices don't have to get bogged down in the day-to-day stuff. The better your store does, the more money you personally make as the store owner, and the more successful the corporate offices are. And so with the help of franchising, by 1982, Subway had opened 300 stores nationwide. And using this model, growth started to become exponential pretty quickly. By 1990, Subway boasted 5,000 restaurants worldwide, from San Francisco to London to Bahrain. By 2000, Subway could consider itself one of the big boys along with McDonald's, and its marketing team really went for the jugular. To set itself apart from McDonald's, Subway branded itself as the healthy fast food alternative. And their now famous Eat Fresh campaign kicked off with a brand new spokesman. Yep, that's right, Jared Fogle.
Then I found Subway restaurants. And I realized I could enjoy lots of great tasting food without lots of fat.
In 1999, Jared claimed to have lost over 250 pounds just by walking and eating Subway subs every day. After his story showed up in the student newspaper at the University of Indiana, shout out student journalists, Subway's marketing team pounced. They made a couple of regional ads with Jared in the early 2000s just to kind of test it out, and when those did well, they went full bore. Subway's marketing would parade Jared from event to event to event, holding his giant jeans in front of him the whole time. And the growth just kept on coming for Subway. Subway saw its revenue triple between 1998 and 2011, and they actually gave Jared credit for about a third to a half of that growth. By the end of 2010, Subway was the largest global fast food chain with more than 30,000 stores worldwide. And over the next 5 years, they would add 15,000 more, bringing the total number of Subways in the world to 45,000 by 2015. With a solid hold on the largest worldwide fast food restaurant, Subway's brand name was recognized everywhere. But at this point, by the time they had 45,000 stores, some cracks were starting to show in the wall. And it really didn't take long for the whole house to come crumbling down. Now, on the surface, having 45,000 stores seems like a sign of a healthy business. But the reality is much different. Let's jump back to the early 2000s. Much better. A businessman named Stuart Frankel had opened his very own Subway stores in Miami, Florida, and as an individual franchise owner, he started to tinker with different deals. In 2003, he made the decision to start selling his footlongs on the weekends for $5 instead of the standard $6. Within the first 2 weeks of the deal, Frankel saw his sales jump from $14,000 a week to $23,000 a week. And $23,000 a week at this point is about 4 times as much as the average Subway store was pulling in. On the back of this deal, Frankel expanded and eventually ended up with 10 stores of his own. Other franchises started to take notice at this point, and when they implemented the deal themselves, most of them saw sales increase by about 50%. It took a few years, but in 2008, just weeks before the recession hit America, Subway's top execs decided to start running the $5 footlong deal every day nationwide. And it was a smashing success. In the first year of the deal, Subway sold $3.8 billion worth of $5 footlongs. And what really set this deal apart is that it was a win-win for both the customers and the franchise owners. Their cash-strapped customers could get a lot of food for cheap, and the franchise owners could actually make a tiny little profit on each one of those subs. Now, typically promos like this are taken at a loss for the franchise owners, with the hope that sides like drinks and cookies and stuff could kind of make up the difference. However, in 2008, Subway sub-franchises were actually making a tiny little profit on the sub itself too. But that kind of started to change as America pulled itself out of the recession. Labor got more expensive and materials got more expensive. By 2012, Subway franchises were pulling in a record amount of money, about $480,000 a year, but they were also growing pretty restless at the $5 footlong. Frankly, most of the restaurants just weren't making a profit on the sub anymore, relying completely on the sides and the drink. And when the main draw at your restaurant isn't turning a profit anymore, it's probably time to pivot. Regional chains started to phase out the promotion in 2012, with the franchise owners themselves kind of privately grumbling in the background that the corporate offices had no idea what it took to actually run one of these stores. But the real death blow for Subway came in 2015. That year, Subway was hit with a double whammy. Jared Fogle was arrested on child pornography charges, and the heart and soul of Subway for over 50 years, Fred DeLuca, passed away after a 2-year fight with leukemia. Their main spokesman, who had become synonymous with Subway, was now a nationwide disgrace. That catchy $5 footlong jingle, completely unusable as no stores honored it anymore. And then the heart of the organization died. So what was Subway left with? Essentially no proven marketing techniques, a hugely bloated number of stores, and a brand new CEO who had to try to clean all of this mess up. It's no surprise that the downfall of Subway started the very next year.
Closing time.
Where are we to go? I'm not using any more of that song. I don't want a copyright strike. So in 2016, for the first time ever, Subway closed more stores than it opened, and they haven't even broken even in a single year since. You see, up until this point, Subway's ethos was kind of to expand as aggressively as possible. If you've ever noticed 2 Subways within like a half mile of each other, that wasn't a mistake. Subway actually encouraged as much growth as possible by offering a tiny overhead to actually start one of these restaurants. A chain like McDonald's would require a franchisee to throw down over $1 million to start their own restaurant, while Subway charges just $200,000 to $500,000 depending on the location. The corporate offices would get that money back by charging an industry-leading 12.5% of sales sent back to the corporate offices per week. And yes, that's sales, not profit. Subway was happy to oversaturate the market. In their eyes, the added brand exposure from having all of these restaurants was worth the franchises themselves kind of being hurt by cannibalizing each other's audiences. I mean, if the corporate offices weren't hurting, all is well, right? But by 2016, the situation had become completely untenable. Franchises could no longer split up their customer base and still turn a profit. Years of an unprofitable $5 footlong drove a lot of them to close, and then Jared Fogle's arrest and the declining foot traffic since caused even more to shut down. Plus, as Subway tried to turn the tides, they kind of pissed off all their franchise owners by forcing them into deeply unprofitable promos. If you don't believe how unprofitable Subway stores are, take it from this franchise owner, Tommy Wright. Tommy is kind of a Subway influencer, so to speak, and he kind of makes monthly breakdown videos about how much money he actually makes from running one of these franchises. Well, in April of 2025, his profit was $2,715 off of a gross sales of $29,000. You add that up over a course of a year, and you get a pretty pitiful $32,000. Now, for Tommy, that's not a very big deal because this isn't his main source of income, but for somebody who is relying this on their main source of income, that'd be pretty tough to live in most places. Add in the stress of running your own business and managing your employees, it's no wonder so many franchise owners are trying to get out of this brand. Subway lost 357 locations in 2016, then 866 in 2017, and over 1,100 in 2018. And as the years have gone on, Subway is still closing more stores than they open per year. In fact, more than 10% of all the Subway restaurants were either closed down or sold to a different owner last year. At this point, Subway has fewer than 37,000 stores worldwide, and less than 20,000 in America. Now, don't get me wrong, that's still a massive amount, but they lost their spot as the #1 worldwide brand to both McDonald's and Starbucks, and there are warning signs that this problem is about to get much worse.
There's always money in the banana stand!
Okay, so let's get this out of the way early. I'm not really a finance guy, not really a financial guy, especially when it comes to large businesses. So I'm not going to try to draw too many conclusions from this stuff. I'm just going to lay all the data out for you guys. Like f***ing everything in America, Subway was recently bought by private equity. Specifically, Subway was sold to Roark Capital in 2023 for a whopping $9.6 billion. Roark is known for owning a whole bunch of different fast food chains like Jimmy John's or Dunkin' Donuts, and private equity is known for slashing and burning well-known companies for the sake of shareholder value. And right on cue, despite saying that he was going to stay on, Subway CEO John Chidsey was forced to retire at the end of 2024. And now, it's not like Chidsey had a track record of smashing success at Subway prior to his departure, but it does kind of shed some light on how Roark views Subway's financials. For example, in August, Subway's president David Fry called an emergency meeting and told all the franchises that foot traffic was down 5 to 10% from 2023. And in about the year and a half since Roark published Subway has publicly financed about $5 billion in debt. From what I can find, about half of that debt is going to overhaul and renovate stores, while the other half of it is some portion of Roark's sale that was financed through debt. What does that mean? I don't really know. Someone in the comments certainly will know, but I'll extrapolate a little bit more here. So kind of reading between the lines here, Subway has a lot of assets, and they just got a shitload of investment, so they're probably not going to die like tomorrow. But I also know that they have a significant amount of debt that's going to need to be paid back with interest over the coming years. So if foot traffic is still declining and franchise owners are treating it as a side hustle, that doesn't bode well for those debt payments. Historically, to get people through the doors, Subway has relied huge on advertising. In their heyday, in 2015, they spent over $500 million on ads. And while, to be fair, they are still loading up the airways with ads like those irritating ones with Steph Curry and Patrick Mahomes. Oh, and who can forget the iconic Danger Witch ad?
Be careful though, it's spicy.
But those ads are just not getting people through the doors like they used to. So if it's not advertising, Subway's probably going to have to up the quality of their food to get people through the door instead. Something that the internet pans constantly. But to that vein, Subway has kind of been retooling their menu ever since 2021 in the hopes that they can create higher quality subs that are going to bring people back. And if you haven't been to a Subway like since the pandemic, they look a lot different now. But I haven't really tried these new subs, so that means that there's only one thing left to do.
So I think I last had a Subway sub in like 2022 because it was the only real option for me when I was on the road. So while I was walking to Subway, I got kind of nervous. I stopped to touch some grass, smell a flower, and chill next to Wisconsin's beautiful state capital. But when my tummy started to grumble, I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. It was time for a sub. And then I got too nervous to film in Subway, and all I could think about on the walk home was how I was going to set up my camera, so I didn't get any video of it. And also I forgot to turn off my AC, so I'm sorry about that. Instead, here's a nice little video of me getting the thumbnail.
Now, it has been a while since I've eaten one of these. Let's see how they've done. I mean, I also gotta say, like, this is a lot of sandwich. I can understand why people were buying these for $5 so often back in the day. It's huge. Okay, here we go. That's my sandwich. Back in the day, I used to get whatever their Italian meat sub was, and so I just got whatever their current Italian meat sub on the menu is. God, it's so springy. Here's a little close-up for you guys. I mean, I'm sure it's fine. I mean, it's not like the worst thing I've ever eaten. I would also say it's not the best thing I've ever eaten. There's so much going on in my sandwich here that it's kind of hard to tell what anything really tastes like. It's very true. These subs taste like exactly what the store smells like. I mean, it's fine. I would way rather have a sub from Jimmy John's or Jersey Mike's or something. I don't really know what I was thinking. I got a COVID vaccine yesterday, and so I kind of feel like shit today. And it is just straight up gray outside right now because of the Canadian wildfires. And so I figured, f it, let's make me feel terrible again today at some point. I mean, the sandwich is weird because it's like the bread is spongy. I will say the vegetables are very crisp. Definitely fresh vegetables. It's just a pepper on its own. Let's just try this. I mean, it's very crunchy. It tastes like a pepper. I think maybe it's the combination of everything. I really think the bread is what's driving this down. A little like salami meat. Yeah, I mean, like that tastes fine. That tastes like salami. It's gotta be the bread. It's gotta be the bread. Yeah, it's just not great. Especially for the price. It's just really not great. But like, I cannot believe that I just bought Subway willingly. And now I have to eat this whole f***ing thing. And I actually almost forgot the best part of Subway, in my opinion, which is the cookies. Let's see if these still hold up. I'm pretty confident that they will. I'll just take a little bit off right here. Still very good. This is easily the best thing that Subway makes. So I guess now we know that the subs didn't get any better. But why would Subway be purchased for almost $10 billion if there was no hope left? Well, there are some positive signs out of Subway, and let's not forget that they still have about 37,000 stores worldwide. So here's what their corporate offices will say. In 2023, Subway sales actually increased by about 6%. Franchises also saw their largest sales ever in 2023, pulling in $490,000. Plus, Subway's reached a number of deals abroad, allowing them to claim that they're going to open 10,000 more stores worldwide in the coming years. According to the company, they're really going to be targeting Latin America in places like Paraguay, and then also in faraway places like Mongolia. At this point, Subway almost has more stores globally than they do actually in America. And if these 10,000 stores get built, then that number might flip. So, if they can keep expanding abroad, Subway corporate thinks that they can reclaim their former glory. However, domestic Subways are just showing no signs of slowing their domestic closures. There's simply too many of them to compete in this super oversaturated marketplace. And then sales slowed again in 2024, and their record sales in 2023, if you use an inflation calculator, they're still about $200,000 short of where they were in 2012. And then on top of all of that, their 10,000 stores commitment doesn't really have anything like in writing that 10,000 stores will be built. It's all just kind of conjecture from executives and leaders in other countries who get a nice little press boost when they welcome in a Western company. And like I said before, even though the brand is really well known, almost nobody likes it.
Ooh. You're nothing but a dreamer.
So in conclusion, Subway is not immediately doomed. They're simply too large to fall apart overnight. And with so many stores, there are bound to be a few of those stores that are actually performing really well. But when you take the situation as a whole, it's kind of hard not to be pessimistic about their future. Subway really had a golden goose with the $5 footlong, so much so that their entire brand identity got tied to that promotion. And now that that deal is unprofitable and not being run anywhere, people would rather just go get a more high quality sub from somewhere else. And now that private equity has entered the building, customers can be pretty sure that slash and burn operations are going to be taken soon if they're not already underway. Add on top of that most of the franchisees are kind of pissed at Subway corporate, and about 10% of their stores each and every year either close or get sold. Things don't look peachy. I don't know, like I said, I'm not a finance guy, but to me, it kind of looks like a company overextending its hand and then reaping the consequences of being overextended. If Subway does recapture its former glory, it's probably going to be abroad and not in America. Sitting here right now, I would say that in 5 years, Subway is probably still going to be on the decline. And in 10 years, there might only be a fraction of them left. If you like that video, you should comment, like, and subscribe. And hey, look at this other video. It's right here. Click it.